flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Board Secretary, has this meeting been advertised in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act?
Yes, it has. Mr. McEnroe.
Make it a roll call, please.
Mr. Baca.
Here.
Mrs. Baca.
Here.
Mr. Bishada.
Here.
Mr. Brzezinski.
Here.
Mr. Syak.
Here.
Mrs. DePinto.
Here.
Mrs. Rakuya.
Here.
Mrs. Kraft.
Here.
And Mr. McEnroe.
I am present. If you will.
This evening in executive session, the board discussed under attorney-client privileges the status of the Sayreville Education Association grievances, the Sayreville Education Association unfair labor practices, Sayreville Education Association members excessive absenteeism, supervisor of special education opening, under negotiations the Sayreville Principal Association, Sayreville Education Association, under student discipline, discipline of middle school student, and HIB reports 23 and 25-29, 2013.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Alfano, presentation.
Yes, I'd like to bring to the podium the strategic plan steering committee. It's Bob Preston, Ms. Riley, Mr. DeAndrea, Mr. Aguiles, Ms. Castronova, Ms. Cola, Mr. Kubik, Ms. Kaczynski, Ms. Marr, and Ms. Coffey's out today. But this is the committee that's done a lot of work in regard to the strategic plan. This is, I think, the third shot trying to get this on. This is about a 10-15 minute presentation, and it's an overview of up to June 30th. Unfortunately, we're already into January, but this is up to June 30th on the strategic plan on the various benchmarks. I believe there's about 80-something benchmarks that we'll discuss and review today. So without further ado, I think Mr. Preston and Ms. Riley are up first, and Mr. Preston will give a little bit of a synopsis of how we got to this point.
Board members like the lights off over there, or you're okay?
I'm just going to give, we put a brochure together. This is the first of 3 years. So we have 5 standards that we're going to start with. The first standard, which is performance. The second standard is fiscal, then that's Mr. Preston and Ms. Riley. The second standard is fiscal health, safety, that's Mr. DeAndrea and Mr. Aguiles. Support services, Ms. Castronova and Mr. Cola. Parent and community involvement is Mr. Kubik and Ms. Kaczynski. And human resources is Ms. Marr and Ms. Coffey. So each of the standards is split into objectives, some like 40 or so objectives, and then those objectives, there are activities that go with them and benchmarks that assess the objective itself. So without further ado, Mr. Preston and Ms. Riley are up first.
Thank you. Our standard was ensuring the success of every student. And basically that's what hopefully we're all here for. It's about the students and how we can get them to succeed. One of the main ways that we came up with, of course, was instruction and making sure that we're implementing the best instructional strategies in the classroom. How we did this was primarily through a new evaluation tool that was really several years in the making, the Danielson model, which we had a workshop on, I don't know what year that was, several years ago. And then we spent another full year working on the rubrics that came with it. And then last year was, then last year was the first year that we actually implemented it. And using the Danielson model was, it was a big shift. Danielson is
next step in the process is to really take a look at the interactive technology that we have available and try to increase the use and increase how we use the interactive technology. One of the things we wanted to start with was take a inventory of what we have currently, and then take a look at where we want to go with it, what we want to integrate with, what kind of devices we want to get. The first step with that was to take a look at our infrastructure, make sure that the infrastructure was available, was capable to handle all of those devices. And now that we've upgraded the infrastructure, now we're starting to take a look at planning for the future and where we want to go with those types of devices, smart boards, laptops, notes, e-readers, etc. And then part of that will also be to provide professional development for our teachers so they can use those effectively in the classroom. Number 3 is to align the curricula to the most recent standards. We have new standards in language arts literacy and in mathematics, and also the language arts literacy standards apply to science, social studies, and technical subjects. So we have to work for the last couple of years to start getting ready for these new standards and aligning our curriculum, and to make sure that those standards are being taught in the classroom.
Our fourth objective had to do with student growth and state testing. Of course, we always looked at state testing, but again, there was a shift in just looking at year to year, like what were our fifth grade passing scores, what were our sixth grade passing scores. Now it's really about student growth and looking at individual students. And if there are any language arts teachers in the audience, which I know there are, you know that we really looked a lot more closely at, where was this child when he came to my classroom? Where is he when he left my classroom? And has he shown some growth? And we've seen a lot of remarkable results, even though our scores aren't as good as we want them to be. We see students go up 40 points sometimes, and they may not be passing a lot of times. They're students with disabilities, but we see amazing growth, and that's what we're now using data for to see, well, what are those teachers doing to make that difference? So that was a big shift with the data and analyzing student scores and making sure our instruction is bringing the students along. And then our fifth objective, this one was about career and college choices and preparing our students for really looking down the road.
Part of this, again, goes with the curriculum to make sure that everything is aligned. There's new college and career readiness standards that have to be implemented into all the classes. So when we updated our curricula, it also added these standards into the new curriculum.
And I know another group will be talking more about this, but we really looked, especially at the high school level, and we do a lot of guidance with career fairs and that kind of thing. And we're now building electives that will focus students more on getting ready for college and career and creating being type of credits and that kind of thing. So that's something that we're very much working on, especially at high school.
And that pretty much concludes standard number 1.
The next group up is Mr. Aglet and Mr. DeAndrea, providing an effective and efficient learning environment, which is standard 2.
Standard 2, provide effective and efficient learning environments. There's a number of objectives up here. There's actually a total of 4 objectives for this goal. 2 objectives deal with monitoring improvements when necessary and maintenance of clean and safe learning environments for the students, staff, and faculty. The 3rd objective, which Mr. DeAndrea will speak to, deals with systems developed put in place to maintain fiscal and managerial accountability. And the final objectives deal with increasing the revenue stream through the application and obtainment of discretionary grants. First one, maintain and monitor clean, healthy learning environments. One of the things that we've done working with Sherry Kaprowski is we developed a new reporting system. that's electronic, so that on a monthly basis, how we were collecting it in the past was on paper. Now we're sending it electronically. Every principal is sending the monthly update of the cleanliness report, which Ms. Komprowski is now able to put together on a month-to-month and at the end of the year a grid as to how our schools are doing, how they look as far as the maintenance and the caretaking of the building. And we get to look at it as far as what schools improve. If there's areas that need improvement, are those schools improving? Are there schools that need a change more than others? For example, does one school have an overwhelming rate of high scores in cleanliness where another one doesn't? And what are the causes for that? And we're able to do that and track that better than we have been with the paper because of the new system we've put in place. Maintain and monitor a safe and efficient learning environment. Obviously, this has become the forefront for Mr. DeAndrea and myself, as well as the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, as far as how safe our schools are, looking at our safety plans for each building as well as the District 1, working with Mr. Eck as we've done in the past, but working more closely as to how to make certain that our schools are not only safer environments, but that our students feel safe, with our students and our staff feel safe with a minimum distraction as far as their learning is concerned.
Obviously, mine's going to deal basically with all the financial aspects. Continue to maintain good financial records and continue to move forward in that regard. You just received your audit, so you know we're already on that track. To continue to maintain in that direction. And the increase in number of discretionary grant applications submitted by the district is going to be an overall look to increase in any area where we can to increase funding, increase our efficiency ratings, so that we can continue to bring more money back into the district. The biggest thing that we're looking for is a grant writer, which I believe I may have found someone over the holiday break who's currently a retired superintendent who's looking to do that as a part-time thing to start writing grants. She's already working with some other districts, so hopefully we can get her in.
Okay, standard 3 is the maximize student support services, and that's Ms. Castronova and Ms. Cole.
Standard 3 is to maximize student support and services.
So district-wide, we're working on increasing INRS intervention services and decreasing the child study team referrals through the INRS process.
And the second one is to develop, uniformly implement, monitor district-wide policies and procedures for pupil personnel services that comply with all applicable sections of NJSA.
And we did review the new policies and codes, and there were 3. They have been adopted. They were put up for review and adoption of the program.
Our third one was to analyze post-secondary outcomes for students, which Ms. Riley touched a little bit upon, and Donna has.
Yearly, we do a post-secondary survey of our seniors. This was done in June of 2012 for the 2012 graduates. They were surveyed. We have analyzed the plans for the students.
And then fourth was to analyze current course offerings and investigate external programs to assist the class of 2015 with meeting the new 130 credit graduation requirements.
New virtual courses were offered through APEX, allowing us to offer additional AP classes this year. We added AP Statistics and AP Physics, and we had a student doing credit recovery with Edusierra for English 12.
And our fifth one is to increase career interest and career development services for students.
Both at the middle school and the high school, career centers were created. Career development and research material
Okay, standard 4 is enhance and strengthen school, parent, and community involvement. And that is Mr. Kubik and Ms. Kozinski.
This is the standard. Do a little walk with here. I need to be speaking to the stakeholders. Bigger stakeholders. But standard 4 is that standard in which we recognize that the plan has to involve all stakeholders. Similar to the book title, I don't paraphrase, it takes a borough to educate a child. There are 4 objectives. The first 2 I'll speak to. The last 2, Mr. Hu will speak to. The first one, I use a clicker. I don't use my finger when I use it. This is throwing me off. I don't stand here throwing. Okay, number 1. My coach's voice has gone. Okay. Communicate with parents regularly concerning Sayreville School District's educational program and students' academic progress. The graphic speaks volumes. Our 21st century learners, you're now communicating in the 21st century. Not so much by phone alone, but rather we are now using, besides the phone, we have an automated phone system, so messages will get to the public in a very, very short time. We revise forms that we send out to the public annually. It begins in August, and as the forms come ready to be sent out, they're revised. There's a website in which all of the information is updated regularly, as we found out from Hurricane Sandy. Progress reports, report cards include not only the academic progress of the students every quarter through a district send out, but they also include the highlights, the calendar, the activities that will be included in the district at the appropriate time. Last but not least, for objective 1, the parent portal. Loved by the parents, embraced by the parents, and parents, 50% of the parents acknowledge that they use portal. Students, when asked, did not have the same warm reception. However, objective 2, besides communication, you must revise and evaluate processes in place for parent and community groups' input into the strategic plan, policy, budget development, and implementation of the district initiatives. At this point in time, most of our involvement in the budget and what's to come will begin in 2013. However, we did conduct a survey at parent conferences this fall, and we will report out at the end of February the number 1 communication avenue that parents prefer. Unofficially, it's email, on accounts that we now have in and we've recorded, and second only to the Parent Connect and the portal. So they are looking for the 21st century communication rather than the hard copy, although they are always available. At this point in time, I invite Mr. Kubik. Number 3.
Good evening. Our third objective is to ensure that all schools embrace our diverse student and parent communities and provide varied opportunities for engaging parents as partners in learning. As we know in Sayreville, we have a very diverse community that really does pull together when things are important, as we found out through Hurricane Sandy. And we also have a lot of programs in the school. But having those programs are not helpful unless people know what's available, what's out there, and what we have to offer, as well as have parents having the input into what they feel we need. So the survey that Claire referenced before that we did on back to school night also addresses that need in terms of how people feel we can best communicate with them. It's very frustrating to have a program and not have many people come out for it. And it's not maybe the fact that people weren't interested, it's just possibly the fact that we haven't communicated enough or in the right vehicle to get parents out. So that is something that we're looking at. In terms of the survey,
Thank you, Mr. Kubik. And our last standard, Ms. Marr, ensure the effective use of human resources to provide a reflective and self-renewing organizational environment. Ms. Marr?
Good evening. I think you saved the best for last year because it's about recruiting, hiring, and retaining the best personnel. For objective 1 is to recruit highly qualified and diverse professional and support personnel, and we do this through advertising in newspapers, through the website, job fairs, and we network with the collegiate groups that Mr. Kubik just spoke about. The second is to support and retain highly qualified and diverse professional and support personnel. It's a picture of 2 of our new staff members, and we do this through faculty meetings, in-service trainings, walkthroughs, new teacher forums, observations, and mentoring. The third objective is to promote a positive culture, and we do that by recognizing staff members through faculty meetings and board of education meetings, department meetings, through the head of the class newsletter, and we also showcase student work through art shows, board of education meetings, family nights, etc. The fourth objective is professional development opportunities for administrative through PLCs, Legal One, Masters, Doctorate programs, our summer retreat, outside professional development opportunities, and the mentoring programs. The fifth objective is professional development for certificated staff, and that is through professional development in and out of the district, PLCs, again, Master Doctorate programs that are offered to the staff. And the sixth is professional development for non-certificated staff. Professional days that a lot of our paraprofessionals do attend. We've had CPI training for our paraprofessionals and continue to do some different trainings with them. And that concludes standard for that.
Thank you. There was a brochure at the last meeting, which unfortunately got eaten up, but I forgot to bring them, but I do have them, and this is on the web. So if anybody wants to see the standards and part of the strategic plan, each one of these things, and I want to thank all 10 members, we meet once a month, sometimes twice to 3 times a month, depending on the circumstances and what needs to be done. The major areas that we're looking at right now is obviously safety, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but safety and security has been something that we're really going to bolster, as well as the new core standards, which is huge right now because of the new assessments and what's going to happen, and technology has to be part of that. So we've spent this 82 sections in regard to benchmarks and how we assessed all these things, and we provided them to the board. I guess you got that about a month ago or so, and I think this is a very good committee because when we sit, we reflect, we talk, and sometimes people get a little bit emotional about their specific standard because there's a lot of work that's involved. We're doing surveys. We're trying to take a look at, I know with the guidance and we're trying to figure out how we're really going to track what students are doing once they leave and how we do that efficiently and how we do and get an accurate pulse of what's happening with our graduates and where they wind up, you know, once they leave Sayreville High School. So, I mean, those are some of the things that we're talking about, and I want to thank that crew. They've done a very nice job. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from the board about the strategic plan, phase 2? Mrs. Backer.
Mr. DeAndre, you talked about grants, and one of the things, Mr. Aguilar might be seeing it, I read about STEM grants that the Assembly had passed. I don't know if it got all the way to the governor's office, but the state's going to be offering STEM grants. Is anybody looking in to see if we could qualify for any of them?
I haven't yet, but I can.
You didn't see anything? Did you see anything come through? Or?
I haven't seen it.
I just read about it.
It was something important.
Yeah, I remember reading about those grants, and it said the state was going to be offering them.
And STEM for the rest of us is science, technology, engineering, and math. Mrs. Black, do you have any comments or concerns?
Yeah, first, a thank you to the team. Thank you for finding the time, because I know that trying to be strategic in the environment in which we currently operate, in which our district has grown from the number of staff that you supervise, coupled with the new evaluation process, the number of evaluations, and just the overall comprehensiveness of the Danielson model itself, finding the time to do this type of stuff and get out of the day-to-day is very difficult. To that end, too, as I look at the magnitude of this plan, the 80 objectives that Dr. Alfano, or 80 benchmarks that Dr. Alfano spoke about, I'm almost wondering, as we get further into this plan, if you might want to consider with your team, rather than giving this presentation all in one shot, trying to cram 80 benchmarks into 15 minutes, maybe every 2 months bringing one of the 5 areas to the board for a presentation and keep it cycling and staggering them.
The only thing is we do everything on a 6-month interval. So, like, for example, now we're gearing up for the December 31st. So I think in the next, February and March, we're going to send out a report based on, at the end of that period. And I just think it might become too cumbersome, but let us get through this. This is a very large document. Right now, we just started it, and we're trying to figure out logistically how we're going to plug all this stuff in. We already have 31 pages, and we still have 5 more sections, 5 more periods to go. So this plan could be, 300-400 pages within the second year. So we're trying to do the best that we can. We try to give you little bells and whistles with the presentation.
Is great.
And I think the bigger thing is, Mr. Syak, is that, the steering committee, we really spend a lot of time discussing strategic planning and reflecting and really looking at the major goals. And then when there's something that comes up in the district, like right now, security, that's going to be a major issue that we're going to be dealing with this committee, and to see, and all the benchmarks already deal with this factor about what procedures we should be following, whether our plan should be updated. So it just magnifies what it is that we do every day.
And I guess my other question would be with regard to the Danielson model. One of the pieces of feedback that I've been hearing from within the district is on the front end of the Danielson model is the pre-conference with the teacher. And I'm not sure if that's always occurring. And I'm wondering if it's a result of, just like as I mentioned before, the time factor and the number of evaluations that we
Well, I think that's a combination of a few things. First off, sometimes the evaluation is unannounced. So the pre-part, because you're talking about a clinical observation, sometimes we don't go clinical. And you're right, you may not have time. Principal may have to do 3 or 4 or whatever. What we're trying to do now with the DEAC committee, which is meeting tomorrow, is we're going to talk about some of these things. And we are going to reflect, and we're going to discuss with the teachers, with the administrators. It's a committee of about 12 to 15 people, of teachers and administrators, and we talk about the evaluation process. So that's going to come up, and we need to tweak because it's still relatively new for everybody. But in a real clinical perspective, the pre is important, but sometimes we don't do the true clinical, and we move right to an unannounced observation, which kind of pushes it into the more of the post and the reflective. I don't know, Mr. Aguilas, if you would like to add a little bit about that, because I know you're really on top of the evaluation end.
The bigger the school, the more likely it is that you won't have a pre-conference for some of the reasons that Dr. Alfano brought up. The elementaries seem to have an opportunity to have that pre-conference more often. Also, it's a preference sometimes on the administrator as far as some administrators feel, and that's one of the things that we're discussing for the consistency factor, is some administrators like to go in unannounced because they want to see what a daily lesson would look like no matter what they when they walk in. We have to balance that against the walkthroughs that we're doing that are unannounced walkthroughs and you're walking in. It really becomes sometimes just time and size of the building and size of the department sometimes can play into that. But we're looking at the success of the pre-conference and what reflective piece. One thing that I'm seeing a lot of from supervisors especially, because they go to multiple buildings, is they have a sheet that they send out to their teachers after they've done the observation. They'll send it with the observation, kind of a reflective model. Tell me how you felt about your lesson, how the lesson went, so that when they walk in and they meet, it's utilized, it's good time. Both teacher and the supervisor have that sheet. They're looking over areas where they both felt that they were strong, they both felt that they were weak. And the most common area is where, hey, I'm a teacher and I felt I did this really well, and you missed it completely or you didn't put it down. So it's an opportunity to discuss that.
Okay, and then I guess my final question is, when we look at our staff as a whole, I know we have a lot of teachers who are interested in moving up to an administrative position, or perhaps just master teachers who are outstanding. Is the Strategic Planning Committee looking at opportunities to better leverage that talent within the district to either mentor additional teachers or in other capacities, especially under the administrative resource constraints that we're under in this district?
We've definitely talked about that because we all acknowledge we have some very excellent teachers, teachers who are providing the best practices, and not necessarily teachers who may want to take an administrative role, but definitely a leadership role. And how do we expand their opportunities just to be teacher leaders, which are just as important as administrators, as far as being able to conduct best practices and show teachers how to, Mr. Howard showed a couple of months ago, just the idea of trying something new and being the first one and innovating and integrating technology into a lesson. He's not the only one who can do it, but he's feeling comfortable doing it. Can he turn around now and teach it to other people who want to do it? And we need to provide the opportunity for those teachers who we consider master teachers, principals consider master teachers, to have that opportunity to really spread the wealth, show what they know, show what works and what the best practices are, so that we can kind of carbon copy, not necessarily that you'll take my lesson plan or you'll teach it exactly the way I teach it, but utilize the best practices so that our students are getting the best they can every time they walk into a classroom. I think they are, and I think that the more time we establish for our teachers to meet together, to discuss what they're doing in the classroom, the better it is for our students as well as teachers.
Any other board comment?
Mr. McEnroe?
Mr. Shad and Ms. Scott.
This is for part 3 of phase 2, okay? The high school, which our supervisor of curriculum, supervisor of guidance, and our special ed supervisor presented. The question I always ask, first of all, you mentioned that they did a survey of the 2012 graduates. Could that be made available to the board to see where our students went to?
It is. It's in the report that I sent to you guys. I can always send it to you again. Okay. It's in the report. And we want to get more accurate information because Mr. Kohler, myself, and the members of the committee were trying to find out even a better way to reach out to the youngsters, the graduates, and get a better, I think it was like 44 and 44%, something like 2-year and 4-year. But again, that's on information that we really want to kind of bolster and make sure it's more accurate and even track it even further. So we're even looking at that. But it's in that section. It's in that benchmark section if you run it all the way across. And I know Mr. Cole is sneaking up behind me and she wants to speak. But I remember 44 and 44.
It is 44 and 44. I did just purchase within the last couple of days, I signed, we didn't pay yet, the Naviance career research package. They no longer sell Naviance in pieces, so you get the entire package. So in the package that I purchased, we actually have purchased the alumni tracker. And one of the first things we need to do is upload 8 years worth of our alumni, our high school alumni. So as long as we continue to purchase Naviance, that program will be tracking our postgraduates, our alumni, and starting with the class of 2013, we will have a very accurate account of their post-secondary education, vocation, etc.
This is what came out of this committee. We asked Mr. Cole, if we could go a little bit further, and after she got me out of a headlock, she said that basically we would look into that, and she's done a very good job. And we all want more accurate information. And I think that that's just part of what we're trying to do, and this is what drives us. This plan gives you a roadmap of where we want to go and what do we want to do once we get there. So this is a lot different than the old strategic plan
that had, like Kevin said, just mountains of stuff, and we never really got through it.
To go along with that, one of the questions I've asked, I'm pretty sure Mrs. Bacco asked it also. A lot of our graduates wind up doing a remedial program in their first year of college. Have we followed that so far to have a number or some type of statistic that would?
Well, you couldn't actually get a statistic on that because that would be a conflict of what the colleges could report to us. They're not allowed to report to us that information. But as part of my county council, I meet with the other directors of guidance in Middlesex County on a quarterly basis. And just this past month, we met with we had a presentation by the testing people at Middlesex County College. And they gave us samples. I passed, Mr. Preston and I have been working together with the Acton Placer and the career and the readiness, the algebra readiness for these remedial courses for Middlesex County College and the other schools. But it is something they're concerned about. It is something Mr. Preston is working on. We're all looking into. And for them to report us numbers, they're not able to do that legally. They can't.
Would it be possible to contact the alumni and ask them for, if the college can't report it, could we ask our alumni, is it a violation of privacy?
I don't know if they would want to give us that information. It's something down the road we could look at. Like I said, all I did with Naviance was sign on the dotted line. I don't know how much, it's a lot of the data collection for the 2012-13 school year that we'll have to put into the program. I think that our very first class that will have really good numbers and information on might not actually be this class, because with our next school year, all of their transcripts and applications, a lot of that process will be done through Naviance, and we will then therefore be able to track the class of 2014 and the future a whole lot more accurately with a lot more data collection. So it is something perhaps down the road. I don't know if our students would want to share that information. It certainly, it gives you the function and the ability to email correspondence with our alumni. So that should really help us out.
This is the last question
Okay.
pertaining to that, I
Sure.
promise you. Years ago, I had the opportunity traveling as a state representative up to Clifton, and Clifton had a program where the bus would pick them up in the morning and take them to Fairleigh Dickerson. Years ago, when we were in school, it was called Fairly Ridiculous, okay? Like Fairleigh, anyhow.
That's
long
still
story
going
short.
around.
But anyhow, they would pick students up for half a day and take them and have them do high school courses at the college and get credit for both college and the high school course at the same time. Has Cerebral or anyone else in Middlesex County looked into possibly doing something similar to this, either at Middlesex County College,
We do.
Rutgers?
We do. Our students attend Middlesex County College. It's called the High School Scholars Program. And for $100, they can take one course per semester, as long as their GPA and their course average is approximately a C. And one course per semester they are taking at Middlesex County College. They get a transcript and they get the credits to take with them toward their college.
Is that during a school day or?
It's not
after
during the school day.
It's after school.
It is. It's summer session as well, Saturdays and evenings.
All right, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Naviance is a great program, and it's long overdue, and I'm very happy that you got that, because I think the tools, even for the kids, to be able to get on there, get their transcripts, and log on and take care of all that stuff, so it makes it a lot easier. You're absolutely right, you're going to have a lot more data at your fingertips.
Great.
Mrs.
Thank
Bacco,
you.
you had a comment, question?
Well, actually, Tom asked my question, but just to follow up, the 44, you said you gathered. How many years back do you have data? Do you look at comparisons of changing over the years?
Oh, we
in that data?
definitely do. We definitely do. And when I go to hit enter on the calculator, I'm very nervous every year. And we absolutely look year to year. And we're pretty close. We do not
Do
fluctuate.
you have that neatly, like on a piece of paper year over year that
I
you can
certainly
get a copy?
We create a high school profile, a district profile that we send with the college applications. They go out with our transcripts, and we have them saved for all the years. So if you would like, I could come up with that data for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Anybody else from the board? If not, if anybody from the public has a question or comment on the presentation you've seen, there will be 2 more public openings for anything that may come before the board. Anything on the presentation, the strategic plan? Seeing none, Dr. O'Connell will press on with these. And everybody should have seen the posted December 4th and 18th minutes. Anybody have any questions, comments, deletions, additions to the minutes? Mrs. Becker.
For December 4th, I just, one comment on page 2, when, just to make sure that this was understood, I had questioned about the eating and drinking in the auditorium, and I asked if we could put up a sign. It doesn't say that I asked for the sign in here, so it just says that I did want people eating and drinking. Did we follow through on that?
As far as I'm aware, signs are already out.
Yeah, but they just put up pieces of paper. I was looking for a
I
sign.
haven't been in high school. I was told that the signs went up.
Okay, so, because it doesn't say that in here, it just says that I asked not, but you did understand that I asked for
Yes,
a sign.
the signs are up.
Okay, so you can correct that it was a sign. And on December 18th.
Do you see, hold on, did you give them the page number?
Page 2.
On the December 4th.
I'll include,
The signs, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that it was
Signs
clear that
will
we
be
agreed to
posted.
purchase a sign.
I'll put signs will be posted there.
Think about something more temporary.
More permanent, something more permanent I was looking for.
I'll speak to Mr. Panzarella and Mr. Brown.
On December 18th, the last page, page 45, superintendent's report approval. And you put no votes were recorded by Mr. Balco, Mrs. Batco. The way I read that, it says I voted no on the report.
You correct that, I missed that, I don't know why.
Okay, well, I think this is what the problem was. If you go to page 37, this is probably where the
It's
confusion.
where the confusion started, because you voted no on those two items.
I voted, right, but on page 37, I voted no on that policy. You don't have that on the policy that I voted no on. So you have that I voted no on the whole report.
It's at the top of the policy.
It's at the top of the policy. You have to go to,
It's at the top of 9322,
thank you, Kevin, because I know I did say it.
which was, I think, the last policy in the deck.
Page 34, it must be noted that Mr. Backer and Mrs. Backer voted no on the following policy.
And what page is that?
34.
Okay, because at the end it had the comments but not the vote.
Right,
Okay.
not like with the comments at the
All
end.
right, I thought you confused the two, but, so that, you just put no on that for,
And the roll call vote should be yes, except as noted. The superintendent's report.
right,
approval.
right.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Any second? Roll call vote.
Second by Mr. Balka?
Yes.
Mrs. Vacco?
Yes.
Mr. Bishara?
Yes.
Mr. Brzezinski?
Mr. DeAndrea, yes on December 4th, and then I abstain on December 18th, since I was absent.
Mr. Syak?
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto? Mrs. Rakuya?
Yes.
Mrs. Stratton?
Yes.
And Ms. Rankin?
Tony, Student Council Representative report, what's happening on campus?
Tomorrow, the Student Council Executive Board members will be attending a statewide leadership conference at TCNJ. We are also in the middle of organizing our School Pride Week, and on behalf of the class of 2013, I would like to say thanks to everybody who was involved in the class trip. Today, deposits for the business trip were collected, and approximately 150 seniors are accepted.
Somebody asked me today, what are the dates of the trip? Is anybody?
It's at the end of May, beginning of June. I think it's like the last 2 days in May.
Okay, that's what it was last 2 days. Thank you. Parent involvement representative, was there a PIC meeting last night?
Yes, there was.
Big meeting last night, and about 10 parents?
No, there were 13.
And, I will say that our next meeting is February 4th, and I'll go to you for the rest of the information. Thank you.
We had about 13 parents who attended. Mr. Fiore was the administrative representative who was there. And we talked about some issues about school safety and about talking to children about some of the things that have gone on, the violent issues in communities and, what happens in Connecticut. And we talked to some parents talked to us about some of their concerns and so on. So that was, and February 4th, we will be having our next meeting. It's Monday, February 4th at 6:30. And Mrs. DeSantis, our technology integration teacher, will be there to highlight and talk about some of the technology projects that the children are involved in. She was originally supposed to be there last night. She had a family emergency that we found out about late in the day, and she was unable to attend, but she has already confirmed that she definitely wants to come on February 4th, so hopefully people will come out and see her and get an opportunity to see what we're doing with technology in the classrooms.
Is the parent involvement representative to the board an actual position that have, or is that?
It's by policy, yeah.
Yeah, it's by our bylaws.
Yeah.
And by bylaws of the parent involvement?
No, by the bylaws of the Board of Ed. The Board of Ed added it many years ago.
I know in the past, there's been a run where we had consistently someone from that organization.
And what's been happening at the parent involvement council meeting, which actually we're rather happy about, is that we've had a lot of different parents. I think last night, most of the parents that were present last night, it was their first time at a meeting. And, you know, we're not having the same people attend over and over again, so it's a little difficult to get people to.
One thing I thought that was quite interesting last night that I didn't see before is there were equally the number of men as women.
Yeah.
Which usually you don't see.
Yeah.
Were they together or just separate?
No, not separate.
Separate. There were many fathers. And it was really nice. I mean, we've had some really good discussions this year at the meetings, and like I said, I think it's wonderful to see different faces, you know, and a wide variety of people coming. I think that's nice. And hopefully we can continue to attract more people. I asked them last night, as I usually do, please come next month and bring a friend with you, or 2 or 3 friends, and, you know. So, and we're working on trying to get some programs, get some topics that the parents would be interested in, to draw them to come out.
Given the change in the format, does the parent involvement representative still make sense, or would it be better if we eliminated that and just had the chair from the board's perspective of the parent involvement council give a report, just like any of our other committees?
I like having the parent come up.
I think if we can get a parent to come, that would be ideal. You know, we're talking about trying to do different things to get, you know, some of the same people coming back. You know, a little bit more consistency.
Okay, so then that would help to build that consistency.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so let's not abandon that idea.
Thank you. District highlights, Mr. Secretary.
A job well done to the Saraville District librarians and 2 members of the Technology Department who played a key role in planning and preparations for the 2012 Annual State Librarians Conference. As President-elect of the New Jersey Association of School Librarians, Pam Gunther, librarian at the Arlett School, chaired the conference Inspiration, Motivation, Participation. Wilson School Librarian Susan Steinhardt co-chaired the registration committee with Margaret Gardillo. Eisenhower School Librarian Danielle DeCarolis, Truman School Librarian Mary Desmond, Samsel Upper Elementary School Librarian Kathleen Lira, Middle School Librarian, and Jennifer Gordon, High School Librarian Assistant. Sandy Paul presented a workshop on Bring Your Own Device, and Barbara DeSantis and Catherine Lira hosted a session on QR codes and creating movie trailers to promote books. 2012 Saraville graduate Erica Stolte drew the winning design in a contest last spring for the program cover. Thank you to all who participated to make such a successful endeavor. Make a Difference Day meant something special for the students of Truman School because of their participation in the Pediatric Foundation Go for the Goal Foundation Walkathon on October 25th, 2012. Many thanks to Caroline Knoppenberger, physical education teacher, for organizing and implementing this successful and fun-filled event. This special activity provided an opportunity for Truman students to reach out to others who have pediatric cancer with love, compassion, and kindness. In addition to experiencing the good feeling that comes from helping others, the children, staff, and parents raised $2,800 for awareness and research. Congratulations on a job well done. We are pleased to announce the inaugural concert of the Symphonic Band Invitational of Central New Jersey, which will take place at Saraville War Memorial High School on January 19, 2013 at 8:00 p.m. This is a 100-member symphony band which is made up of high school students who were nominated from over 25 Central New Jersey districts. 12 members of this group are from our very own band program. In addition, the concert will include a percussion feature. This program will be conducted by Dr. William Vers, a professor of music at Rutgers University. Tickets are $10 and will be sold at the door the day of the concert. We hope you will attend and that you will enjoy. We would like to take this opportunity to send a heartfelt thank you to the Loyal Stock Valley PTO, students and staff from Pennsylvania for the contribution of books that were made to the students at the Samsel Upper Elementary School who suffered from the effects of Hurricane Sandy. Their generous donation was spread throughout our school district in our 4 K-3 elementary schools and to our 4th and 5th graders at the Samsel Upper Elementary School. Thank you for personally driving these books from Pennsylvania to the shores of New Jersey. In appreciation, our technology teacher, Lori Pekansky, and her students have created an Animoto for them. Again, thanks to the Loyalsock School District for giving our students the gift of knowledge. And for those of you not familiar with Animoto, it was basically a video of the books arriving here, them being distributed, and I thought it was a very innovative way to say thank you to that PTO. The Sayreville War Memorial High School History Honor Society played an important part in our nation's history on Monday, December 17, 2012. Members of the society were invited by Assemblyman John Wisniewski to act as tellers at the 57th meeting of the New Jersey Electoral College. The meeting was presided over by Assemblyman Wisniewski and featured speeches by Lieutenant Governor Kimberly Guadagno and the New Jersey Supreme Court Chief Justice Stuart Rabner. New Jersey's electoral votes for the 2012 presidential election were formally cast as Sayreville students collected the votes from the electors and submitted them to Assemblyman Wisniewski, officially electing Barack Obama president. The students were then treated to a reception and a tour of the State House. The event was attended by History Honor Society advisors Joseph Paspa and Christopher Howard, and History Honor Society members Elizabeth Agimon, J-Dip Desai, Josh Goldstein, Mike Hoyt, Areta Jez, Chris Kahn, Kristen Misick, Jackie O'Connor, Bahuni Patel, Shivam Patel, Chelsea Shirillo, and Vikrant Singh. The students were excited as they realized they had now become a part of our country's history. Congratulations to all those who were mentioned.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Dr. Alfano, can you please take us through your superintendent's report?
Thank you, Mr. McEnroe. Section A, Buildings and Grounds, is a use at the Samsel Upper Elementary School for the Girl Scouts. Any questions with Section A? With none, moving to B. These are our participants for the Middlesex County Arts Middle School and High School program.
Dr. Alfano, I need to abstain on that item. I serve on the Board of Trustees of the nonprofit organization.
Sure. Mr. DeAndrea, please make a note of that. Number 2, this is the Sayreville Principals Association approval for a 3-year new contract from 2011 to 2014. The Board of Education also will authorize the business administrator to advertise for the bids for a new roof at Eisenhower. Grant offsets is listed in numbers 4 and 5. Any questions with Section B? With none, moving on to personnel, non-certified. There is a Miss Meyer, Christine Meyer has been here, I don't want to say how many years, but we're sorely going to miss Chris. She's been here, and she's a real mainstay in the business office on the payroll. And I know Mr. DeAndrea may want to say something as well. And I wish her nothing but the best and Godspeed. But she's moving on to greener pastures. July 1st is her last day.
It was quite interesting. Never received a resignation where an individual actually posted their picture when they started and ended their career in the district. So it was kind of interesting to see the years that have gone by here. But I have to say it's been a great pleasure working with Ms. Myers over my 10 years here in the district. She's going to be seriously missed in my office because it's a person who comes to work every day and strives for perfection. It's not easy processing payroll for over $50 million a year and all the associated tax reports and all that. So she is going to be a tough replacement when she is moving on to the better parts of her life. She did say she wants to enjoy it. She has her grandchildren that she's looking forward to spending some time with. So I do probably want to wish her a happy and healthy retirement as she moves on.
Thank you, Mr. DeAndrea. There's a few resignations of paraprofessionals, a lateral transfer of a paraprofessional, and some professional days. There's a contractual retirement payout, which is listed in number 6. Moving to number 7 are some new hires as listed, and there's a substitute list for non-certificated. Any questions with Section C?
Just a quick comment to echo Mr. DeAndrea's comments regarding Mrs. Meyer. Payroll is one of those functions where if there's a problem, it's very visible very quickly. And in all the time I've been on the board, I can't remember too many problems coming out of the payroll department, if any. So it really is a credit to her in the manner in which she's done her job all these years, and that she's managed to handle our payroll accurately and make sure that everyone gets paid, because it's truly a critical function. And I do want to wish her well in her retirement.
Thank you, Mr. Sy. Moving along to D, personnel certified. There's a resignation. There's a pregnancy leave, an extension of child rearing, and approval of a retroactive reemployment as listed for 2011-12 and 2012-13, which is basically the administrator's salaries for those 2 years. These are professional days also listed as noted on page 8 to page 9. Some tutorial teachers that are being approved in number 6. Number 7 are a few individuals that we're hiring. 8 are some substitutes. 9 and 10 are some extracurricular and coaching positions that are being filled. Any questions with that section D?
Yes. Mr. DeAndre, I'll be voting no on page 7, number 4, and page 4, number 2, the contract.
Number 4 on page 7 and number 4, yeah. And number 2 on page 4. Number 2 on
I'm also voting no on those with 1 hour and 1 later.
If you're going to accept one. Dan Bopper also on number 2, finance number 2, and personnel number 4. Is that correct?
Okay, moving forward. Section E, there is no policy. F, curriculum, harassment, intimidation, and bullying as noted, those sections. Retroactively approving a new student from South Amboy, and also a placement for the Center for Lifelong Learning. Retroactive transfer of a placement of a student to Cranford, and there are 34 students on home instruction, 78 students in out-of-district placements, and there's a recommendation for the board disciplinary as a result of a discipline hearing that was held today. Any questions with that section F? With none, moving to G. Co-curriculum, boys and girls soccer team sponsor annual Mr. Sayable contest. I think Mr. DeAndrea is going to try. You didn't win. Approve all at school to hold its winter festival. Grant a maternity leave of absence. Any questions with that section? With none, moving on to H. Support services. Waive some transportation, new routes as listed, and a few trips on pages on page 13. And there are some competition approvals on number 6 and number 7. Number 8, the Board of Education is an additional board bus to transport the students that are in the tutorial program as listed. That concludes my report. Mr. McEnroe.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from the board on the board agenda items? Mrs. Bruno.
I have a question. Under co-curricular, we're granting maternity leave of absence, but I thought we assigned coaches every year. For number 3, page 11, number 3, co-curriculum. I don't remember ever doing that before.
I'm sorry, I'm
Page 11.
At the bottom.
At the bottom. I don't remember ever doing maternity leave for a following year when we don't appoint them now.
I think it might be because this is a full year. So a lot of times when people go on maternity, their season's over, so maybe they don't need the leave because they've, like, this is like a full
Maybe
year.
right,
When
but-
we're replacing someone.
Like the resignation from that position?
Well, she's
already?
not resigned, she's going on maternity. It's a leave.
What happened is, this individual was transferred to the middle school as a coach, either at the last meeting or the meeting
No, not as,
before.
no, it's
No,
a teacher.
it's not a teacher.
But shouldn't that be a prorated as well? If the
I think we approved somebody else. She did. Somebody, Beth is shaking her head. I don't know. I have to check that.
Well,
So if
we
you-
have someone here prorated on the previous page.
Just table.
table or without no comment, wish to withdraw? Frank, would you wish to withdraw it then?
Well, even number 10, because it's not specific of, it's being prorated, but you kind of have to know when it's being prorated. So I think number 10 and number 3 need to be tabled. And I'll get back to you next.
You'll withdraw them.
Right,
I'll
and then we
withdraw.
could just, we approve Mallory, Chris, retroactively?
We can approve Mallory because she needs to be approved, and I'll revise that when I come back. So I'll look to see exactly when the date started. Okay?
The coach is out during the season. This is basketball, isn't it?
No, this is cheerleading.
Yeah, that's
Cheerleading, but she had there's two sports, there's football and basketball. So maybe she went through and,
That's what I'm asking.
It's football, basketball competition. She went through football, she started basketball, and now
right,
she's
so we have to
on
figure out, because she's not, if I just put number 3 in the way it is, she's not gonna get, she shouldn't be paid at all.
Right, she has to be
Good
prorated like the
pickup.
other.
I'll figure it out. I'll withdraw number 3, leave number 10 so that she can continue to work, and I will upgrade the prorate so that we know exactly when she started, so that when it goes to Chris for payroll, Chris will eventually know exactly when she needs to be paid. The problem is my people know, but they didn't put it into the report.
So you're withdrawing it?
I'm just withdrawing the 1.
Any other questions, comments from the board for opening?
And I'll amend the other one next week.
Good job.
Okay, seeing none, at this time, I'd like to open up to the public for any questions or comments on the agenda item only. I will open up again for the public for any business that may come before the board. So if you have any questions or comments on the agenda items, please come up, state your name and address for the record. Sir, we'll get you next.
I'm sorry. Margaret Hill Cummins, 22 Schmidt Street. First of all, I don't see anything on this agenda or the last agenda honoring the football team. 3 years state championship, 3 years in a row. This year, undefeated, first time since 1949. I mean, my 3 sons played football, and they were very interested. They played with, in fact, the vice principals of the high school now. But I think they should be even mentioned.
We did last
It's in highlights.
in December, and it was in the highlights.
Mr. Syak mentioned it, but you didn't, Mr. Alfano.
Excuse me, Mrs. Kilcummings, we are going to celebrate and honor these young men at the February meeting, because I'm honoring different people each month, and I didn't want to slight anybody. So I've already told to
It
Ms.
just wasn't even mentioned. I mean, this is on.
No, it was mentioned last week, and we all congratulated them.
The next thing is, I'm trying to figure out, and I'm looking at the principal's contracts or the administration's. Like I've always said, this school system is extremely kind to administration. And no offense, I know the majority are here, and they do a great job. But some of these raises seem to be a little outrageous. Now, when I look at from 2011 to 2013 and adding them up, I mean, people don't get this with the economic times that it is. With your 2% cap on a budget, I find some of these just a little excessive.
Sure, I can give that, Alex. The contract, first of all, this contract was supposed to have been settled by June 30th of 2011, because that was when the last contract actually expired. So based upon the people who are on our payroll as of June 30th, 2011, this contract and the guides would have given them a 5.95% raise over the 3-year period.
Over 3 years?
Over 3 years. So this would fall within the 2% per year guidelines set forth by the
So
state.
it's a 5% raise for 3 years then?
Over
I mean,
the
this
five
ends
point-
2000,
five
according to
point-
this, it's 2013.
5.95 over the 3 years.
Which is less than 2%.
which is less than 2% a year.
Explain the
Now,
difference
again,
in contract.
Just about
some people on the lower end of the guide are getting more than 2%. Some people at the high end of the guide or off guide are getting less than 1%. It depends on where you fall on the guide.
So it's not due to performance, it's in the guide? So in
Yes,
other
it's in-
words, where your steps are or whatever?
Correct.
I mean, I find people new to the job, like 2 months ago when I saw Mrs. Eichler's raise, it was like $5,000 in 1 year. And just as the new assistant superintendent. And, I mean, usually you don't even prove yourself in a position for a year, so it's not based on performance, but $5,000 raise, I just found it excessive.
The other thing that I will share with you is that the administrators are also giving up their cell phones, so we are no longer paying for the cell phones. In addition to that, we've also cut back on vacation. That was another give back that was negotiated in the contract. And the final part is, because of some of the retirements that we've had, the actual cost of this contract in total for the positions that are governed by it at the end of 2014 will be $5,000 less than it was in 2011.
So that's why this contract took 3 years in the making.
It took a year and a half.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else from the public, sir? Yeah, you gotta talk to the microphone so you get on the video. Sir, this is on agenda items only?
On the issue about Eisenhower's roof,
Okay. Yes, sir.
if you don't mind.
No, that's fine.
Alrighty.
Just come up, state your name and address for the record, sir.
Yes. My name is Thomas McMahon, 16 Sheet. I live in Parlin, New Jersey. My children go to both schools, Eisenhower and middle school, right? The middle school. My son was in the Eisenhower having the roof done this whole week. No one had badges. They left a ladder up 2 days. Truck was parked in the crossing area. There was no parent, no principal, no PTO, no teacher. Out 2 days this week for the children. You also have a busted gate in the parking lot. These are issues that, as a parent, I stand out there with my partner, John Mahoney. We patrol in the morning and the afternoon. We're not patrolling it. We're overlooking the people, our children. Mr. G even met me. I walk my daughter to school. I park my car. Mrs. Brady knows me. I'm a father, just like everyone else, a parent. I am very concerned, very. These are the little, I want to say little things that can escalate to bigger things. The playground you have there, they already put graffiti on the playground. It's a brand new playground. It's off to the parking lot. You don't have, I mean, like the lady said it with, the guys are like giving money. I seen 3 guys on a roof. I have a picture of it today, if you'd like to see it. On the roof. I don't think if you're gonna, our children are to be taught, there shouldn't be no discrepancies. That's one thing. You got on a roof, sledgehammering, banging, taking vents out. I got children downstairs.
If I could, I don't believe they're doing any roof work. What we're doing is in the process of removing the chimney that's there.
That's roof work.
Well,
Well, it's not
we have a bigger project
Yeah,
going on.
all right, but
So
they're
it's-
on the roof.
They are on the
Nobody
roof.
is tied off.
And
Nobody was tied off.
I would
On
have
the
to
roof.
speak to our director of facilities. as to
Well,
those
Mr. Fiore's not here, and I'm pretty sure he knew that me and John were gonna be here.
No, we appreciate that, and
I'm
I'll speak to the
concerned.
director of facilities.
I'm one of
on
those
that.
parents, and I take the extra half hour, I'm very lucky.
These are outside people on the roof?
Yes.
Or are people on the roof?
No, outside contract.
Outside but there could also be some of our employees.
They're
maybe
outside
doing some
contractors.
maintenance work.
There were no.
There
no
was
car-
only one Sayreville maintenance men that came today, 12:30? 12:30, 1 o'clock, I believe he came for 20 minutes in the blue van. Shuffled himself off after he seen the guys working. Parents came to me and said, Mr. McMahon, what are you doing? I said, I'm watching. I found a pair of gloves. I asked the parent, how'd you know I was parking there? You know, these are, you know, little things, but these are all gonna escalate.
What about the gate you talking about? Which gate?
I'm not aware of any gates, I would have to.
Which Buster gate you talking about?
The gate on the fence, the parking fence where the children actually get out of the car.
I'll follow up with Mr.
It's the-
Fury, it's the work order.
I'm trying to visualize which fence and I'm talking
If you want, just give you this.
about. Borders the parking lot?
Yes, sir.
May not be our property then.
No, it's your property. It's the Sayreville School property.
Do you have Dennis go out there tomorrow and see?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, I'll follow up.
Especially this gentleman's out there in the morning.
I'm there morning and evening. Afternoon, I pass by.
It's on one of the side fences.
Side fence, right?
It's a side fence, that's our fence. Yeah, it's right next to the school. The fence
I
lines
just took a
that are
real
adjacent.
quick picture so you can see where it just
Right.
broke right off.
Right, it's one of the pieces,
I'll
but it
follow
can't
up.
be cut.
I'm not looking to,
This is how we know about it.
yes.
I'll follow up.
Yeah.
I'll follow up with
Thank
you
you.
tomorrow.
You know, all right, gentlemen,
Thank you.
you know what I can say.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Anybody else from the public on agenda items only? Mr. Pateri.
Good evening. I am Alan Spatieri, one of the vice principals at Sayreville Middle School and the current president of the Sayreville Principals Association. On behalf of the negotiating team and the other members of the Sayreville Principals Association, I'd like to publicly thank the board members who had the resiliency, the integrity, and the objectivity to vote yes in favor of passing what was nearly a 2-year-long contract settlement process. Additionally, the majority vote is very meaningful in so much as it represents both support and respect for the exemplary administrative team assembled here at Sayreville. An administrative team that collectively is an integral and vital component to not only the school community, but to the Sayreville community at large. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scuteri. Anyone else from the public like to speak or make a comment on the agenda items? I will open up again for the public for any business may come before this board. Seeing none, I'd like to take a motion to accept and file the superintendent's report. Please, Mr. D'Angelo, as the objections or no votes from the report. Need a motion? Need a second?
Second.
Okay, I need a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Balfour?
Yes, I have noticed.
Mrs. Backup?
Yes, accept and close.
Mr. Bishada?
Mr. DeAndrea, on page 4, under finance, I'll be voting no. And on page 7,
On what? It said page 4, what number?
number 4, I mentioned that, didn't I?
You said page 4.
Page 4, excuse me, number 2. I'll be voting no. Also, on page 7, number 4, under personnel certified, I'll be voting no on that also. Everything else will be yes.
Mrs. Rosinski?
Yes.
Mr. Sire?
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto?
Yes.
Mrs. Rakuya?
Yes.
Mrs. Kraft?
Yes.
And Mr. McNamara?
Yes. Okay, delegate to New Jersey School Board Association, that would be Mr. Sire.
It's been quiet because of the holiday break. We did have a Middlesex County School Board's meeting last night, which I know several of us attended. In addition to that, I did get an update today from Frank Lucio regarding the election moves, and so far nothing has changed since the last update, which means that there are still 65 school districts which are retaining the April election, although there is one which has basically given a verbal commitment to move by the end of the month, which would bring it down to 64, and he indicated that Metuchen is discussing it tonight, but didn't give any indication as to which way they would go. Other than that, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Sire.
Mr. McEnon, so 64 are staying?
As of right this second, 65 are staying in April. One more is expected to move by the end of the month.
All right, and how many have moved?
486.
That's a close
Some,
number.
don't forget, some are mayor appointed with
That's
no.
right. They don't have that authority.
Okay. Okay, under discussion, nice segue. Talking about movement of the board elections from April to November. I know we talked about this in the past a couple of times, and I think we just need to put this to rest, finally, and decide what we want to do. I was at the county meeting last night, and I know there was some concern from board members when we talked about this, about the possible confusion that could occur with the November elections. This was the first year that happened, unfortunately. For the movement of the school board elections, it was also a presidential election, so you had a busy ballot. And although we received those in the mail prior to elections, sometimes people don't look at them, they discard them, then they get in the poll, they vote for national office, local municipalities, and then the school board thing on the bottom, they don't see it or they don't vote on it. That was a concern. I did talk to a couple of other districts yesterday in Middlesex County that did move the elections, namely Old Bridge. We sat at the same table, had dinner with some Old Bridge individuals. One individual was a new board member newly elected in November, and he was, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't have any issue with the election because he got elected. So I guess that has something to do with it. I guess if you talk to someone who didn't get elected, they blame it on the process of moving to November. But that aside, I've always felt, and I'm very articulate about that with the board, that we have an opportunity to move the election to November. I know there was some concern at the December 18 meeting about a member from the public and a board member talked about the elections in the schools and how that kind of fit into what we were talking about on a national level about security in the buildings. I think we have an opportunity now to cut that in half, to eliminate one election from the schools and eliminate half of the people that would come in the building. This is something that Mrs. DePinto had mentioned to me today, which is something I really didn't think about until she brought it to the forefront. So that's another thing that I think, my argument has always been, and I've always been very forward about it, was that I'm protecting the budget. And I think this year particularly, with the damage that the town received from the storm, we certainly know that the municipal budget is going to be strained. There's obviously, and Dr. Alfano's going to talk about this next, some of the security measures that we're going to implement based on the meeting that we had on the 18th. That's going to require some money. So I'm looking at protecting the budget, and that's always been my motivation, and it's still my motivation. And I just want to open it up again for discussion of the board, and then just call a vote on it.
Well, Mr. McEnroe, let me start, please.
Mr. Machado, why don't you start?
I've mentioned this is the umpteenth time about I do not want to give up the public's right to vote on the budget. We have two councilmen here this evening with us. They're newly elected, and I'll ask them a question. Being that would you give the public an opportunity to vote on the municipal budget? This has been brought up before by members of the audience. That's why I'm not trying to put you on the hot spot.
But he is.
But,
Councilman, please come up and state your name and address the record. Thank you.
I noticed it gets even warmer. Hi, David Bill, 27th Street. As far as moving the election to the same day as municipal elections, good point is brought up there. People tend to forget, or not look at the very bottom of that sheet. I feel a little uncomfortable with that. At least when the Board of Ed elections are held, separate from municipal elections, everyone has a clear picture of who they're voting for.
Wouldn't you think that it's a better indication of a board member's election when you have more people come out and vote? I think traditionally, if you look at the numbers, Councilman, more people come out for municipal elections.
More do, and I'd like to see more people, as we say, at the meeting regarding the parents. Yeah, I'd like to see more parents get involved, more people get involved in education. I don't know, as you, again, pointed out earlier, I don't know if that many people look at the bottom of that election roll and say, am I just voting for a bond here, or am I voting for a member of the Board of Ed? I want people to know who their choices are. I certainly do when I vote. I mean, I vote for Dorchester. I know there is no Dorchester. That said, being in a hot seat, I want to know, I want a clear explanation as to whom I'm voting for. Good point also.
I think we have a due diligence on the part of the voters to know what they're doing when they go in.
I do agree. I do agree that people come in and get in that booth and tend to, and yes, I did win. So I feel comfortable with that. Don't know how I lost, I don't know how I would feel. Doing diligence, that's the public's opportunity and the public's responsibility to do diligence. It's the best answer I can give you at this time.
That's fine, I appreciate it.
Have I answered your question?
Yeah, Mr. Bashad actually asked.
No, I want to let you
Yes.
know. I
mean, look, this is something that,
I do my diligence, and I take this very seriously.
I've been very
At the
honest,
age of- At the age of 64, to jump into politics, I'm either off my rock or very, very serious. And I am very serious right
well,
now.
I've said this many times in public, I've always been very honest about it, that I'm protecting the budget. If the budget was not an issue, I would not have been advocating moving the elections to November. It's the fact that if you move the elections to November, we can have a budget. And the other issue too, and to be a realist from a board's perspective, is that we're going into negotiations with our biggest union. And to go into that on top of a possible failed budget, it just makes things difficult for everybody.
I am not advocating one way or the other.
I understand. I'm just
Giving
advocating.
by the way, as a private citizen, I felt comfortable with where it was. That's all. If you decide to move it to that one day, that first Tuesday in November, as a citizen, I'm in the election booth again. It's that simple. I'm comfortable with my Board of Ed. I think he's doing a great job. I have no slights, no steers or arrows. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Mr. Magnone, let me continue after
Sure.
you gave us our.
Sure.
his
This is
opinion.
our time, Bill.
The other issue that, as I mentioned before, if we prepare a budget that the public feels is the right budget for this calendar year, they're going to vote for it. That's the issue that we have. I cannot see taking away the right to vote from our citizens. If this legislature allowed this to happen, when's it going to stop? What's the next move that they're going to try to take away? The right that every citizen has in the United States, if you're not a convicted felon, is something that they can't take away from you, and that's your right to vote. And I think our citizens deserve the right to make the choice of who they want to vote for, and if the budget is appropriate, that they will vote and accept it.
Thank you, Mr. Bashad. Mr. Brzezinski?
Said it 2 meetings ago, Mr. McEnroe, I agree with Tom. I mean, that's just one great opportunity we have is to vote. And it's been, I don't know how many years it's been going on. I'm just not subject to change. I just said to keep it in April.
Mrs. Backo? I know you. Mrs. Burnham?
I do think that the voter is still voting, even if they don't have a voice in the budget separately, because they're choosing the people that design the budget, that plan the budget, that make it up. So they still are voting, I don't think we're quite taking that away. I have a suggestion. Why don't we put it out there for the public? Why don't we make this a question on our ballot and let the public decide, do they want it in November, or do they want to
We
stay
have
in
to make
April?
that decision before April. When is it, I think it was February 20, because the people that are going to run for the board have to have their decisions
Normally
in.
60 days prior.
Well, Jonathan told us tonight, it was February.
February.
Well, no,
Something like that.
under that scenario, we would have to, if we wanted to go that route, we'd have to keep it in April this year and then put it on, I don't know if we'll go on the April ballot or the November ballot. It'd probably be better to go on the November ballot because you get the entire community. But if you went that way, you would have to keep it in April this year. There wouldn't be time to do a
And that
referendum.
would
on
allow
winter.
the public to decide when they want the election.
Not a bad idea.
But it doesn't solve the problem for the budget this year. I mean, and that's fine. Look, I'm going to put it out to vote. Whatever the board goes, I'm going to support the
I guess
majority of the board.
I understand that people would still have the right to vote for the people, and I know you'd get more people, but sometimes I think just because you get more people, you might not be getting that educated
I
vote,
agree,
which is where my
absolutely.
concern would be
Yes.
more. And you definitely would get more people, and they would do, as Mr. McGill said, go down or vote, maybe not pay attention on the bottom what it is. So I'm not so sure that more people is better in this particular circumstance.
It would be people that turn out in April are people that are interested in the
Right.
school board election.
Right.
We have people that are up on the issues and that this is their concern, not just someone that stepped into the booth and wants to vote.
Right.
What about the argument of the money that we would save by reducing the amount of elections we hold, and the fact that, the concern that you had about
Security and-
security,
Right, my
less
concern
elections.
about security could very easily be fixed. That's a no-brainer to take the polls out of the schools.
But this is
To
easy,
me,
well, we've been down that
that
road.
is easy. It's easy.
We've been down that road, and I will support that argument again.
And I
think-
do not think it's a difficult thing to do.
Well, I think the window is open again now
I
to address
think
this.
so, too.
But I think we have an opportunity right now to say, hey, we can cut that problem in half right off the bat. Mr. Sires?
Someone once said to me that people don't fear change, they fear loss. And this is probably one of those circumstances where that is very appropriate, because I think people feel loss of their say on the budget. I think people feel I know I feel some loss in terms of, as a candidate, you know, when you run through that process, getting lost in that barrage of campaign literature. As a school board member, I feel a sense of concern or loss over perhaps the quality of board member we may get as a result of, as we mentioned, having more uninformed, voters out as opposed to the people who are really knowledgeable.
Why do we assume that the people that go out and vote for municipals are uninformed? I heard that several times.
Would you let me?
Well, I mean, I don't think that's a, okay, go ahead.
It's not that they're uninformed.
Well, that's the word you used.
They're maybe informed, but maybe not as necessarily on the school issues when they go out for municipal issues.
Lesson.
Can I continue?
Absolutely.
One of the things I did in trying to research this is I called up someone who, and I'm not going to mention the person's name, but I respect the person, not involved in education, senior citizen, veteran, and it was someone who, if I made this decision and went in the wrong direction, and he called me up the next day and said he was very disappointed in me, I would be very upset. So I figured, let me do a preemptive strike, and I ran this by this individual. I cited the savings of not having the election in April. I cited the fact that, yes, we are giving up the budget vote, but yes, there is a 2% cap in place, that we would be having more people come out, that may or may not lead to more informed people coming out, we don't know. And I basically outlined this entire situation, and what he said to me was, given the savings, given the fact that it's a 2% cap, that's not an exorbitant amount, that he doesn't see any reason why we shouldn't move it to November and have all of the elections held in the same place. So I would be open to moving it to November despite my own personal reservations about it. I think, maybe we have to kind of look outside of ourselves to maybe get more of an objective, from my perspective, I think I have to look outside of myself to get more of an objective opinion. What I would say is if this board decides not to move it to November, then I would definitely agree with Mrs. Rakuya. I think that we need to stop having this conversation every single year. Let's put it on the ballot, and let's let the voters decide where they wish to have the election. And my guess is they're probably going to say to move it to November. I could be wrong, but that's my feeling. So that's where I stand.
Mrs. Trapp?
I agree with a lot of what a lot of you said. The fact that the voters cannot vote on the municipal budget, they seem to take it out on the school budget. So and my priority here, as much as the taxpayers are very important, and I'm a taxpayer, the students are also very important, and that 2%, I like the idea of being guaranteed that 2%. So that's basically the bottom line for me after everything else that was said, though I also do agree that if we don't change it to November, that we have to put it as a second question in April or in November, whichever it is.
I still agree. I agree with everyone for the most part. I still don't want to move it. You won't get to cut savings in half. Well, as you were saying,
You won't. You get.
There's still three elections.
There'll be less money. Not,
but you're not going to cut the security issues in half because there's still a June and a November besides the April election held in schools. So you're paying a third off that mark.
Well, you have the primary.
Yeah, the primary. Yeah, because when schools are open during primary right now too. So, but I still don't want things to break. Vote away. I mean, the legislature could have done it. The council could do it too at any time they want, or a question on ballot could do it. So we don't move, put the question on ballot, and whatever happens, happens.
I've always said I was against taking the right to vote away from the voters. Today I
did a lot of soul searching as to why I would think it would be a good idea. My number one priority came up as security, and we would be taking one of the elections out of the school. And then I thought about the savings, and we also could use that money towards the security that we all are putting as a priority in our heads. However, I am very uneasy about me, myself, taking the right to vote away from the voters that voted for me. I myself am a taxpayer. The taxpayers voted for me. I'm very uneasy about taking it away from them. I would be more comfortable putting it out to a vote and having them tell us what they want to do.
Well, I guess I see where this is going, but this is good debate, and I respect everybody's opinion. I will just close by saying that I think the most important thing that we can do as board members is get that budget passed, because we always talk about impact on students. That's an impact on students. Mr. DeAndre, since the last 8 or 9 years that budgets got defeated, how much money did we lose from the budget? So I know the process is it goes to the municipality, and they've cut budgets over the years, and I'm going to say like 6, 7 million that I can remember.
In my 10 years here, your number is probably in the 7 that have failed, because we've passed 3 in my 10 years. We've probably lost $7 to $10 million in budget money.
And Dan, you know this better than I do, but if you have a 2% tax levy that you're maxed at, this is on the levy now, so it's the money that you raise from the public. If you have a budget that's defeated and the budget is cut, let's say it's cut a couple of million by the municipality, the following year your 2% levy is on a smaller amount.
Sure.
Right, so your budget just keeps getting smaller. And I think
Well, it's not smaller, just
well, the
grows
percentage that you grow.
grows smaller.
Okay, so that's less money you're gonna have to fund what you need to fund. And I think if you look at, if we stay 2% all the way down the road, there's gonna be a point in the near future where we're not gonna be able to fund the level of things that we fund now. And that's with budgets getting past the 2%. Would you agree with that? There's gonna be a point where you hit that wall.
Right, but in November, isn't it, it's a 2%,
It's 2%.
Right.
No, you can go to a 2% without the vote.
In November.
Right.
So either way.
Yeah,
it's
either
still
way, we're gonna
2%.
get there.
Right,
We're
but
gonna
you
get
don't,
there a lot
you don't
quicker and
face,
fast, is what I'm
Right, but
saying.
either way, we're stuck at 2%.
Yes,
right,
yes.
but you don't face the chance of having the budget reduced below the 2%.
If it's over 2% and the election's in November, then they vote in November on a budget? Is that
No.
another question on the
No.
ballot?
If the board moves the elections to April, the board
November.
must
To November.
adopt, I'm sorry, if the board moves, thank you, the board moves to November, the board must adopt a 2% budget,
Right.
starting July 1. The November elections, the way I understand it, you have a separate question that goes to the voters to give you the authority to spend above the 2% cap.
So it'd be an additional question on the
Additional
ballot.
question, you would have to outline those items that you're looking to go above the cap with.
Oh, by specific items or?
Yes, it's almost like a separate question. You have to identify why you're going there. Keep in mind, you also have the capability of expending your 2% cap with certain waivers, which in my 10 years, the board has never done and never has even contemplated it. So there are things that happen, but the way I understand it, you have to adopt a 2% budget, and then the November elections, you go for your extra money if you're above the 2%.
But the waiver would be the same whether it's April or November? Is
Yeah,
that
waiver
different?
doesn't.
That's not, all right.
All right, everybody makes a good points, and I think in closing, more than half of the board has been elected to this position 2 and 3 times, and some maybe 6 or 7 times. And I think when we're elected to this position, people are trusting us to do certain things. I know I didn't run for the Board of Education to cut tapes and go to opening day at the Little League. I think it's about making hard decisions, and this is one of the hard decisions. And I know that we would get criticism for it, and I think there's a segment out there that I would agree with some of you that will look at us taking the vote out of their hands, but they elected us to make these decisions. And just like we elect our council people to put together a budget that they believe is fair to both the municipality and to the taxpayers. And that's always where I've been coming from. And I'm hoping that you're right, because I see that we don't have the votes here to move the election to November. And I just hope that I'm wrong, that in April the budget gets passed and we can avoid an issue of bringing it to the council, because I think everybody in town knows And you're right, I don't know who said it, maybe it was Jill, that, they can't vote on a municipal budget, and I don't think any municipal budgets I've been in the town that I was not supportive of. I live here, and there's a lot of good things about Sayreville. But you're right, they do take it out because they have a say in this vote, and usually the people that come out to school board elections ought to vote no on the budget, and the statistic shows that over the years, since 20 years that I've been in town and what I've seen, so. So now just ask the board, do we have the support to want to ask this as a question in April? Because obviously we don't have the support to move to November. Is that what we want to do? Do we want to put on a question in April to say, do we want to move the elections to November? And that would be effective the following year.
I think we'd have
The question would be in April.
Well, or, I know Jersey City, the municipal governing body, put a non-binding question on the ballot for November.
Right, I would, we don't have to make that decision tonight, but I think
I
we're going to do a
would
question.
ask that you allow me time to speak to our attorneys and find out, because I've not heard of anyone else approaching in this manner to put out a question.
We are unique here.
So instead of, let's allow
Well, we
us
can,
some time.
that's fine. I mean, there's no rush to go down there.
But before Mr. DeAndrea does that, I mean, is the majority of the board open to putting it on the ballot on either April or November? Because I don't want to have him chasing something down that none of us are interested in doing.
I am.
I'm a yes.
I mentioned.
You brought it up, so.
No, I'm good. I'd rather see it.
I mean, I would guess that Tom would be okay with it because he wants the voters to have a say, so that would be consistent. Good job.
There's no need to put this thing on the ballot. The people will vote and they'll tell us how they want it. That's it. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, and I agree, let's put this, I never met a dead horse, I don't want to kick. But I would say, the last school board election, was it 18% of the people came out and voted, and this letter that Dr.
And the budget passed.
Feinsod sent to me, 65% came out for this last municipal election, be it as a presidential election. I just think in a democracy, the more people that vote, the better idea of
But I
what the
think the
people
2%
want.
has made a change too, in the way the population votes the budget.
All right, the horse is dead.
Horse is dead.
Dismount.
Okay, moving on, Dr. Alfano, we had a meeting December 18th, as everybody recalls.
Is this put to rest now? That's the bottom line. No, we're going to pursue this for another month. And do the same thing again. Let's put it to rest tonight. Either we move the election or we don't.
Well, then then somebody has to make a motion,
Well, we need the motion.
I think that's been decided. We're not going to move it, but we're going to pursue putting a question on the ballot.
Okay,
We're going to
we're going to pursue it.
I'm sorry, say
We're going to pursue it. Further, we got some information and what our options are.
I make a motion to retain the April election for this year, but to pursue placing a non-binding referendum question on a future ballot to solicit voter sentiment with regard to moving the election to November.
Did you get all that?
I second.
No.
I'll read it to you tomorrow.
That's it. Just make a motion then to keep the election to April.
If I
But
could,
I think it's two. I think we
Mr.
want to go
McEnroe, if I
far.
could, there is a formal resolution that the board needs to pass if you're looking to move it.
Right, not to keep it.
So, all I'm saying, I think the best thing is to read the formal resolution and vote it down, and then I think Mr. Bishara gets the closure that he's asking about as far as this, because then you have a formal vote of the board saying no to moving the elections, and that's what many other boards have done.
Couldn't you bring it up again the following month, even if you said
You
no?
could,
Yes,
but
you could. No,
I'm
but
just
keep
saying,
it.
you don't have a vote, you keep discussing. I did bring the resolution if that was the design.
Yeah, I would, Mr. Bishara, you're gonna have to bear the pain. Okay, Dr. Alfano. As you recall, the December 18th meeting, we had a good number of folks here talking about the security of our schools. And Dr. Alfano, can you just kind of outline what we're doing from that time to now?
Well, what I'll do is I surveyed just about every superintendent, every district in the county to see what they were doing. So I said, rather than what we're doing, give you a basic overview of what the county is doing because of the confidentiality and the security of our own district. So I prefer not to get specific to what we're doing, but a lot of these things that I'm going to bring up is many of them we're considering. And I asked every superintendent in the district, in the county, you know, a question is, what are you planning to do now after the Newtown disaster and tragedy? And, you know, to bolster your security. And they came up with 9 different things. The first thing that many districts are considering is swipe cards for entry for every single building. So in other words, when you go in, every faculty member, the doors would all be locked, faculty member comes in, they swipe. We have two of our schools that have swipe cards, 5 do not. So that's something obviously we're considering. Universal badges, just like that gentleman brought up, that everybody in the buildings all have the same badge. Not that we have a badge for the UES, we have a badge for Wilson School, that everybody does the same thing, and we're looking at that. A lot of districts are looking at additional cameras or even putting more cameras in. This is something that everybody's looking at as well. Radios, two-way radios that go to the police, radios that administrators use, so obviously that you're bolstering your communication. Doors, windows, locks, upgrades, and installations, and also the type of glass that's being put in that possibly, not that it's bulletproof, but that it's a little bit more durable. Some districts are looking and talking about, one district talked about metal detectors.
That was the wand.
That was brought up, or wands. The problem with metal detectors and or wands, it takes tons of time to get kids through a metal detector, just like if you went to an airport. So I don't know if that's feasibly possible. We also, every district is looking at building security plans that they want to analyze and look at the actual building itself to determine strategically where specific offices are held so that it's more efficiently run, so that you don't have, let's just say, your attendance office on the other end of the building, that everything is obviously in one central location. The last thing they talked about, obviously a lot of people talking about personnel. Whether they be the director of security, some districts are looking at that, some districts are looking at possibly unarmed security guards, other districts were looking at lobby guards, as they call them. We even brought in a security company, an unarmed security company, to get a feel for what is available, what's out there. We made no commitment, we're making no commitment. However, we are researching and we're looking at, some of the schools that don't have. Some schools are calling them lobby guards, so they're actually trying to downgrade the individuals that go in the front of the buildings rather than security guards. Just so that everybody knows, we do have armed security in most of the districts in this county and in this state. In the bigger schools, in the schools where the kids are older, most districts do have armed security in those buildings, whether they be SROs or whether they be regular officers. Everybody knows about Marlboro. There is not a lot of districts that need any kind of commitment other than looking at unarmed. So we did meet with the security. We made really no commitment, but most of the districts, like I said, are looking at the first 8 things that we talked about, because these are things that they may be able to put on a referendum so that it's a one-shot deal. Cameras are very expensive, so people are looking at, if we're going to do that, it will go out to the public, like we were just saying, and then hopefully the public would support something like that. But we are, as I said, we're testing the waters, we're seeing what's out there. And security is, like we said with the strategic plan, it has always been our #1 priority. And I'm speaking to Officer Eck, who's going to come in, the OEM, and he's going to do a walkthrough of all the buildings and give us a synopsis of what he thinks we need to tighten up. That's what I mean by making the buildings more efficient. And, we have an administrative team meeting this week. The major topic of conversation is this. And I know in every building we have cameras, but we may bolster those cameras. As far as some of the other things we talked about, we are considering many of the things that we're talking about. What it actually will cost, I know Mr. DeAndre and I are trying to, cost out some things, and hopefully we will implement some of these things. But I'm not going to be specific. I'm not going to, I'm not going to be, I'm not going to get up here and say we're going to do X, Y, and Z, because I don't want to compromise the security of any district in the county, nor do I want to do ours. One thing I can say is we're always looking to make our district and our schools safer. And I appreciate the gentleman getting up and saying, yes, I will take any suggestions. If somebody comes in, every once in a while, I do get a parent to come in and say, you know, I walked in and, you know, there was no security. We're even asking some of the elementary schools to kind of cut back on the amount of traffic that comes into the building once the buildings are locked up. So we're looking at how to do that, how to control that kind of environment. One thing I want to say before I finish, and I'm done with security, but something on a positive note, going back to Sandy. This afternoon, Mr. DeAndrea, myself, Mr. Fury, Ms. Eichner, we received about $31,000 in donations from Millburn. And we were, Mr. DeAndrea and myself and Mr. Fury and Ms. Eichner, were parceling them. And every one of our displaced families are going to get about $300. And there's some really pretty cards. And if you have some time tomorrow, I don't know if they're still around. I know we have them all locked up, Mr. DeAndrea, since everything that's been going on. But it's really a very, very nice thing that Millburn students, they even gave us boxes of pajamas that we told them, please no clothes. But they did some pajamas, they made cards. It's very cute, and it's really heartwarming that this community, and not only we're doing that, you talked about STEM, we are thinking about doing a partnership with Millburn, that we're, with some things with STEM, and that we're going to communicate back and forth with our interactive video conferencing capabilities. So I think this is a great partnership, and I want to thank Mr. DeAndrea and Ms. Eichner and for putting it together. And I know Ms. Eichner put most of the displaced families together, which it was not an easy thing to do. So you know, we're going to be distributing those, and it came in anything from Target cards
From $5 to some that were unknown.
Yeah.
The one that we saw that was the one family contributed $200. So we had from anywhere from 500 to 200, and some were not even marked as to how much. So
and $5 Target cards, and you know, most of them were, thank God, not money. Most of it was a lot of you know, cards, which is phenomenal. I mean, it's just, and we wanted to wait. The superintendent of Millburn and myself and Mr. DeAndrea and the rest of us said, you know what? Let's do this after the holidays, because they're getting, you know, they got bombarded with maybe a lot of stuff before the holidays. I think this is something that was really good. I thought it's something that we should mention. Really want to, you know, thank the teachers also for helping out, because they really made it easy for us to figure out what goes where, and a lot of the board members were very involved in this, and I appreciate their concern. But just so that you know, it's all about the children.
Is this a particular school, or is this the entire?
This is the whole district. This is Millburn that came in.
Could we invite a representative?
We will.
Board meeting?
We're doing a lot with them, and we met with Dr. Caulfield, who came down. I think everybody's like, you know, 7 feet tall. I always feel like a fidget, but everybody I deal with is real tall. But he's a very nice gentleman, and we're going to get together, and there's a lot more to go. I mean, this is just the beginning.
If I could, the main thing that Millburn expressed, this really wasn't an initiative of the school district, as Mr. Crisfield put it to us, or Dr. Crisfield. This was an initiative by the community that just came through the school. They did not do anything as far as a board to recognize it. This was really done as a community thing that just happened to funnel through the school. So that's why it might be difficult to bring boards together and all, because they're not looking for that kind of recognition. It wasn't really a Board of Education initiative. It was more of a community initiative, and the parents happened to be school-based is why they were able to do it more. So we'll talk to them.
It was similar to the people from Pennsylvania. They didn't want to be acknowledged, you know, with the books. They said, yeah, this is just what we're doing.
I want to get back on security.
Okay.
These things that you mentioned and that we talked about over the break, the swipe cards. To get them in other schools, we the cost. We're in the process now of putting the budget together.
I could already put $250,000 in the budget for it.
And that will cover them for the 5 schools.
We believe it will cover them because the number of doors and coverage required at the elementary buildings is not as quite as extensive as here. So it was, the budgets at that last minute that all this occurred, didn't have time to really bring in our architects and all. But we met with we put a call out to the vendor, and he felt $250,000 for the 5 buildings should be sufficient.
Okay, and the swipe cards that we're talking about, is that in addition to the ID, or is the ID the swipe card?
Separate.
Separate.
Okay, as far as the picture IDs, that's something we can do relatively.
We have, our internal personnel package has that. We just don't have the equipment currently to run it. We did some research. The equipment would run, and I apologize, it was. The equipment we believe right now would probably run around $2,000, the equipment required to run a good ID badge. We can run a regular paper badge, but that would not be of anything of substance. And we've already looked, would be around $2,000. What we're still investigating is, will the equipment that we found work with our personnel package itself in order to do it? We have a good number of staff pictures, some outdated, so that becomes another process as to how do we get all of our staff to ensure that everybody's picture is on the database before we transfer over, so there are a few additional steps that we have to go through in that regard.
As far as doors are concerned, I know we spent a significant amount of money the last 2 budgets replacing outer doors, and we worked with OEM for that. Are there any doors left from that cycle of purchasing that we need to identify?
We're already on top of that,
Yeah.
too.
I believe, if I remember correctly, Mr. Pantaleano identified some doors at Truman that really needed to be replaced. There were some issues, they didn't properly lock, is one more. And I've already
Mr.
authorized.
DeAndrea, please.
I would just,
Be careful
if
what
we
we're
cannot
saying
mention
here.
I apologize.
the
You know, we're
specific
saying
conditions that
already-
we have.
We've already moved forward with replacing certain, I've already authorized him to go ahead and start replacing doors that he felt needed to be replaced. My apologies.
Thank you. And then the last thing, and I know Olive has implemented this already. Once the kids are in school, the buses drive away, the parents drive away, the school is really in a lockdown. Nobody's leaving the school. No parents are coming in because the kid forgot sneakers, forgot lunch. You know, don't forget it tomorrow type of thing. That's going to be district-wide.
Well, we're gonna discuss that at the next, I haven't had an administrative team meeting, I have one on Thursday, that's one of the things we're gonna talk
It
about.
seems like
Try to make it more uniform. Some schools, it's hard to do that, especially in the bigger schools where you have 1,500 kids, 1,700 kids, it's a little bit different. But we're gonna try to very much limit the traffic. How we do that, each school might be a little bit different. It may be more difficult, let's say, in one building than in another.
Sure, you have some buildings with 40.
Right. You know, it's just sometimes, some schools are just a little bit more conducive to that, something like that. But we are going to, like I said, we're going to try to not eliminate, reduce significantly the traffic that comes in. And I think that stems from, you know, going to the parents and saying to the parents, look, you know, please just help us. You know, if you can avoid coming back to the building, that would be great. Obviously, if your child is sick or something like that, you obviously, you know, you have to have some sort of contact.
But we would expect that, right, person coming, so, okay. All right,
I
any,
have, can I follow up on that?
yes, go ahead. Mr.
Okay, so the security badge and the ID badge, why couldn't that be the same? Why
That's a
would-
good question.
That's mine.
They probably could, but since we're looking to implement one now and one later on, the ID badges is something that we can do, initiate without having to get the money budgeted for and all that. It's something that we can do a lot sooner. The other badges, the swipe cards is something that probably wouldn't be completed until, if we took, when we did it this year, somewhere in October, November to complete the whole project, you're looking at much further distance. The other problem with the swipe cards, the ID badges is an internal thing. In one department, the swipe cards would be somewhere else.
Jill, can I answer that question? You gotta be careful of security, because if they lose that swipe card and it's got your picture on it and your name on it, you gotta be careful, because the swipe cards we have now are white. So you don't know, people don't know what that swipe card is or who it is. You know, so I think what you do is a lot of people have, like I know in the high school, I see they have like they have the card where they have their badge, and then they also have that around their neck. Or they have it in their pocket. Some people have it in their wallet. I have it in my wallet because I always forget it. So it's easy for me. It's just like a credit card.
Yeah, but I mean, like, that's how like they do it at colleges, your swipe card, you get in your dorm room, you get into, use your meal plan, it's all one card, and they do it that way for security. It's all on one card that has their picture on them.
And you lose it, you deactivate it,
Yeah,
and you get a new one.
The other way, you have to keep track of 2 cards.
Well-
Like, I have an ID card, didn't we make that in-house? Is it
Yes,
expired?
and Dr. Alfano alluded to, each building is doing something different. We don't have a universal ID.
Okay, but the ones like that we have, we made them?
Yeah, they
They
did.
were done at the high
They didn't
school.
count.
So, doesn't the staff have a card like the ones we have? Does the staff
The
have
high school may.
The high school.
The middle school may have something different, the UES has
But they
something.
have a card with their picture on it? No?
I don't recall if they have, I'm not in this high school often
The
enough.
teachers,
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I had a question. Not that, everybody will be applying for it, but are there Homeland Security grants?
We're keeping our eyes open for anything that comes out. The good part is Officer X does call me on a regular basis. Things are out there to know what we're looking to do, if there's anything we can work on together, so. We have a good, and Mr. Aguirre is good, we have a good open line of communication.
Now might be a good time to
Reaching out
engage
to
that
the
grant
county.
writers.
We just met.
Okay. Any other comments from the board about security?
I have a question.
Mrs. Beck?
Your email talked about a question maybe for security?
Yeah, I was debating, based on our assessment, if there's an expenditure required for infrastructure, that we go out and ask as a question to do that. A second question would be my understanding to exceed the 2% cap. Because the state has not identified security as one of those reasons to exceed the cap. A referendum, as you know, was more or less for a bond type of issue, and a one-time expense type of thing, where a second question, I think you could ask every year to fund a certain thing. Well, once you actually, second question, it's good, it becomes part of your cap requirement.
My understanding is it becomes part of your cap.
We don't know what that number is based on, we haven't done an assessment of what we need to replace, and maybe there are things that we can identify, new radios, panic.
Right, you brought it up in the email, I was just wondering, is that like, because it would change the focus of the budget somewhat, so is that?
Yeah, I'm all for that, 'cause I think that's something that would
pass.
pass, but we have to, yes, I think that's a very good question. To ask a second question, for security upgrades, I think that's something that the public would certainly be receptive to.
But if it gets turned down, we can't spend the money
No,
on
it
those
depends.
items.
If a bond referendum for physical perimeter improvements gets turned down, we can find the money, I think, within the budget to do it.
Right, but if you actually
If
put
it's
out
a,
a second.
if it's a second question for recurring cost to exceed the cap, then we couldn't do those
Once it's
items.
voted
So you
down.
want to be very careful about what you put on a second question, because if it gets voted down, we wouldn't be able to do it for a year
But
at all.
normally you can't put a bond question out for reoccurring costs. so
Right.
that's why we
Correct.
do that.
Yeah, we had an access question last night to the NGSB attorney. To get it done. But I think it's something that we should look at once we, cameras, doors, physical infrastructure costs, that would be a one-time cost. And then if we decide
And
to
I
get
guess,
some additional.
and I would ask that the board needs, we need more clarification as to what the board is looking to do, because obviously this entails a lot more than, hey, can you give us a number? We need to know more specific, are we looking to do what we've done at the middle school and high school, whereby almost every corner you turn, there's a camera watching the students going, or are we okay with having cameras at main entrances and some secondary entrances at the elementary, so whereby we're not monitoring hallway activity and things like that?
Video, I'm going to say it again. Don't get too deep into what you're
Okay,
talking
all right,
about.
so, all right, this is what we're
That's
gonna
what
do.
the
Okay,
final-
listen, this is what we're gonna do. Dr. Fano, Mr. Sakai, maybe Mr. Bashada from Buildings and Grounds to get together. We'll identify those things, and then we'll have the number and some
Finance committee,
Yeah.
we'll figure it out.
Well, that's good, because Mr. Bashada, you're on the finance.
Right, but I guess my question is, we're starting the budget next week. Are we going to go ahead from a budget committee perspective and go through security and put it in the budget?
I understand
That's
your
what I'm
question.
looking for.
I understand your question.
That's really what I was looking for direction there before we start on Tuesday with our marathon budget process. So I'm sort of looking for some
Because
direction.
right now, we got a large amount to cut.
Right.
And if we're adding tonight, it makes it even deeper.
Right, so I guess is a question where we're like,
I'm all supportive of the question. and then-
I know you are, you
Right.
said it in your email.
And pull those things out of the budget that are security related and put on that question. I'm good.
Right now, we only have one item.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm asking. Is everybody agreeable to that? Dan, you're formulating the budget now. Then we'll identify those things with Dr. O'Connell, we'll come up with a cost and itemize those without an extra slide. Does anybody object to that? Okay, and that's fine. I think that's a logical way to go. We'll figure it out. Mr. McInerney. Yeah, I'm gonna open up for the public in a minute, sir.
I have a question, Mr. McInerney.
Yes.
Dr. O'Fennell, you mentioned that you contacted a security firm, am I correct?
Yes.
I don't want to go into the details of the security firm. Did they give you a number cost?
Yes. But I'm going to tell you, I'm going to make your prediction. I mean, Mr. DeAndrew person. Yeah, and they also look at the overall security.
They could be higher.
They do just about anything. It was on Ed Data, so it's a bidded out company, and they're highly, respected, and they have a lot of business.
Well, the reason I ask this is because right now we have our security. So we have some security within the district that we're paying for. The issue that I would ask is, have we considered hiring our own security? People within the community, such as a retired law enforcement officer, maybe a fire official, or someone like that.
I think you really have to go through a firm, because there's a whole bunch of background checks and things of this nature. And I don't know, I think it's probably going to be more economical from that perspective, because they're hiring people in bulk. And I wouldn't know where to even look to find people, and I'm not a director of security that I would know, whether somebody I would just, like I said, I don't want to be too specific, because what I'm going to say is that we did go to a security firm, we're continuing to look at this, and we'll see what happens.
Well, the reason let me say this here. Let's the board, maybe one day we'll have a closed session meeting, we can discuss certain items, and then we can divulge to the public what decisions we've made. Would you agree to something like that?
The plan is very specific that we have to be very careful what we divulge. It's like, if I start telling you, well, we're going to put in 50 cameras and we're going to,
No, I'm not saying that. Not
I mean,
explicit
obviously-
details, just that we're going to go with, we'll say we're going to go with new security measures, which may include staffing, equipment, etc.
I mean, at one point in time, it has to be public.
Right.
Because it's a bidded document that's going to have specifications and plans that are going to detail where the cameras are going to be. So we're not going to be able to, at some point in time, it becomes public, folks. So just keep.
Yeah, whether it's security, if we hire a security firm.
My issue is that if we hire an outside security firm, this is the issue that I have. Twofold is that, first of all, the cost. Second of all, what's going to be is the familiarity with the students. Because most people that work for a security outfit are there on it's not the best paying job. They're looking for a better paying job. And one of the things that our students deserve is to have the same face there every day, that they can feel secure when they come into the classroom or into the school. These issues there. A person that's trained to, if a situation arises, they can handle it without using force. That's why I mentioned the idea of having possibly a retired, a state trooper, a police officer, or people like that. I know there's people out there that are looking to supplement their income, and there can be things worked out.
I think that would be a discussion that we have on personnel. I mean, that's obviously a budgeting issue too.
Well,
It's also
just some
something
of the
that impacts
concerns. I don't know how the parents would feel about it, but I would feel safer knowing that I had a retired cop without having a gun, knowing what he can do.
But we're going to continue this conversation. Let's do what we need to do, get the cost for the swipe cards, and we'll meet, and we'll discuss those, and we'll include you with that number.
All right, I wanted to bring this up.
I got you. We're not going to let this die. We'll have a conversation about it. Okay, anything else for discussion for open up to the public?
I just
just have a quick question. Dr. Alfano, you remember the student that came to talk about, he wanted to video, he
We
went to
took care of
different kinds of, what was the outcome?
I think they were allowing him to do it. I remember, I did speak to Mr. Brown, and he said he took care of it, and it was a misunderstanding. I'm not exactly sure what it is he wanted to do, but he never really went to Mr. Kaiserman. He sort of kind of bounced over.
So
He's the first
he's
stage
been
squad.
accommodated.
Yeah.
He's the first stage squad. Okay, seeing none, it's time to open up to the public. If any business may have come before the board, please state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, Mrs. Gilchrist. Oh.
No, go ahead. Barbara Hill Cummins, 22 Schmidt Street. I'm listening to all of this about security, but I think a lot more people should be involved with this and making the decisions to make the school safe. One is even the teachers. And like Mrs. Osmond said, I don't see anybody going to the superintendent's office to shoot them. Who's in guard? Is it, who's
That's
in the
not
line
true.
of, who's in the
That's
line
not
of
true.
fire?
In Florida, they sat right there, and they shot 3 people right there, if you recall, 2 years ago.
But the line of fire seems to be the teachers.
I'll certainly have a bullseye on you if you want.
But I think a lot more people should be involved in the security process and decision and everything else. And I agree with Mr. Bichado. I mean, even looking into security firms, there's a lot of things. Doors are not security, locked completely. You have deliveries for cafeterias is open. There's many doors that are open in the school.
Can we please
A
not
lot-
highlight additional deficiencies which people can use against us?
But you have to look into this. There should be
Ms.
one
Gilchrist,
entrance in the front.
we are.
So this should be really discussed by more people, by either the teachers, the other administrators, to
If I
have their
could,
input.
I can tell you that as Mr. Pantaleano has been going through the district this past week, he has been getting input from administrators and teachers. He specifically has come back to me, he said he's amazed that as he's going around in these buildings, how people are pulling him and saying, this is an area I want you to look at, this is an area I want you to look at. So although it may not be in a formal setting, it is occurring in a very informal setting where people are voicing their opinion as to what they think needs to be done in the building. Not formally, but I can tell you it's happening in an informal
You
setting.
had a parent come right here to tell you about the people on the roof, there's too many options that are open, but things have to be discussed more in detail, not just in closed session, but either with the board and collectively with teachers, administration, and possibly even parents to give. I don't have children in the school. I'm a grandparent. My children go to a different school. But I would be concerned for their safety, like everyone else is. After what happened in Newtown, Connecticut, safety and security is on everybody's mind. And it is a hot issue. So I think we just can't have it quietly or whatever. It really has to be an open discussion forum with collectively. Either you get the parents involved openly here, before you look into security firms or swipes, you only have it for 2 schools, securing all the doors. There's a lot of issues here, and I think that should be collectively discussed.
Mr. McEnon, if I may, unfortunately, I know way too much about this because of 9/11, Virginia Tech, Columbine, etc. There are protocols that we do follow based on suggestions by and briefings by the FBI and the state police. I know, and I was telling this to Mr. DeAndre the other day, I know that there are going to be over the next couple of months, once the FBI and the state police have been able to work themselves as to what went wrong, what went right, they will share that information with school districts and make recommendations to them, as was done in 9/11, as was done with Columbine and so forth. So
That information isn't out on Connecticut.
Not yet, but as soon as, every time there is a shooting of this magnitude, or we do get briefed and we do attend these briefings and we do follow the protocols very closely to what those suggestions are.
Anybody else, sir? Come on.
John Mahoney with 415 Brook Avenue. I'm only here for security. I absolutely love the education that my kids get, and it's like second to none as far as I'm concerned. That being said, I don't really think that you guys, you watch the news, but I don't think you're really getting what is going on. You're talking about swipe cards and cameras, and all of these incidents are brute force attacks. Through the window, 2 seconds. This individual in Newtown, Connecticut, fired over 300 rounds in 3 minutes and 40 seconds before the first officers arrived, and it was over. Swipe cards, none of this stuff matters. Talking about having somebody not get into the building. The movie theater, I'm not sure if anybody's aware of the details of the movie theater from a couple months ago, July. In the states that allow carry concealed permits, businesses can have a sign outside the business that says, this is a business that does not allow firearms in it. Please leave your firearms home or whatever in your vehicle. They tracked this person's path from his home. He passed 3 movie theaters before he got to that movie theater. The other 3 movie theaters didn't have that sign. This kid in Newtown, Connecticut, it's not Asperger's or autism. He was a sociopath. He fooled everybody. Totally fooled everybody. He found the most evil thing that he could do, which was to murder babies. And he did it. And we're not prepared for this. It's taken too long. We're without going into detail, because I know you guys are nervous, but I mean, if police on the tour during the day, instead of sitting in a park, sit in the school parking lot. Be visible. We're not trying to catch fish here. We want to be visible. Oh, this is not a good target. Marlboro is nice and safe now. It causes a problem for everybody else because it's the we got no sign here. Well, we're going to go on to the next place. It's just taking way too long. It's too much politics, too much discussion. I was here December 18th meeting. I had 50 people stand up and throwing cash at everybody. $1 a day. How much does somebody want to get paid? Especially the police officers that you guys said are vendors for construction companies. There are plenty of police officers in this town that have kids that are in the district. We'll be vendors. It just needs to happen a lot faster. Because I'm like a wreck every day that I gotta leave my kid for school. I wind up just driving past the school 3 times a day, 4 times a day. Me and him stay at the school after we drop our kids off till 9:30. We could say, oh, it's 9:07, so-and-so should be coming out to go to her car. You know?
All I can tell you, sir, is that we met over the break subsequent to the September 18th meeting. We talked to other districts, we have professionals look at our buildings and making suggestions of those things that we're not going to disclose. We have some things that we are going to do. Actually, January 3rd, went over and spoke with the president of the Marlboro Board of Education to get the genesis of how this developed, and I had an interesting conversation with him. And he encouraged me and the board, if you want to do that, go on Marlboro school website and click on their December 18th meeting, and you'll see the genesis of how police wound up in the building. It was the mayor that went to the board meeting and said, here's the police officers. So, you know, those are issues. You know, we work very closely with our chief of police and our emergency management director. I am very aware of the issues and how these people got into our buildings. There's some concern. Now, we were in Oak Ridge High School last night, and you pull up to Oak Ridge High School, and that's a relatively new building, and all you see is this huge glass facade. I mean, you look at these buildings, no one ever built a school building to try to say, you know, how do we prevent somebody with a heavy weapon trying to get in? That's an issue we're all struggling with. But I like to leave, and I know there's some suggestions here, to leave it to our professionals that do this for a living to make this assessment and advise us of what we need to do. And the police department and Mr. Eck and other folks in town whose business is to assess the threats which are continually changing, and to talk with the superintendent on what we need to be doing. And this is a concern of all of us, and we're doing what we can do, and you know, there's going to be some things happening in the future here as we continue to talk about this in the meeting that we're going to have. And I understand that, you know, what can we do now, and we'll work on those issues. But I think the swipe card thing and those things are a step in the right direction. And I've been harping on this with the doors, get them closed, keep them locked, and all those types of things.
Well, after, without going into a certain school or whatever, I think that after 8:45 in the morning, the front door in and the front door out for everybody except, and I don't think delivery should be, I know it's kind of difficult, but you got huge food trucks going up at 2:30 in the afternoon when the kids are getting out of school, and these guys can't even see the kids walking across the parking lot. That's up to individual principals to take care of that.
I agree, sir.
But as far as in and out of the building, it's like Swiss cheese in some of these places. So in the front door and out the front door.
And that's something that Dr. Alfano is aware of, and we're going to fix. I guarantee, and I certainly appreciate what you and this other gentleman are doing. And you know, if you find those things, please talk to us, email us. Dr. Alfano is always available. Let them know. We can fix them right away. Those are easy fixes. I think it's more procedural. Look, we live in a different world right now. After September 11th, we all gave up. If you ever flown since then, we've given up some rights and some privileges that we enjoyed, and I think entering our schools is going to go that same route.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else from the public?
Mr. McEnone, please bring back the tables. Everyone here that attends these meetings want the tables. Am I correct? Everybody wants the tables. And you're also helping the janitors. A lot of them leave by 11. They have to break everything down. I saw it at the last meeting. And you're helping them with less work that they could do other things. So this decorum here is unnecessary, and it would save time, so please bring back the tables.
I'll take it under advisement.
Dr. Alfano, why did we take them away?
Yes, whose idea was this
Fine.
to begin with?
Fine.
Oh, come on. Well,
I
we're
like the
outvoting
setting. It
Mr.
keeps people
McEnone.
focused on the meeting. We don't have benches, but we have seats. And you'd be sitting in the same chairs anyway.
Tables and you'd be helping the janitors.
I'll take it under advisement. Thank you. Anybody else from the public? Seeing none,
What about
take a motion to adjourn.
So
Thank you.